We are not plant-based, and we are very excited to have a special guest join us on our YouTube channel today. Please welcome plant-based Pixie. Actually, before you kind of all think that we've like turned a corner, which we haven't.
Set in our ways.
Yeah. Plant-based is actually a very interesting term. Would you like to explain why?
Yeah, so this is one of my pet peeves. A lot of people think that plant-based means the same thing as vegan. It doesn't. Plant-based and vegan are not interchangeable terms. So plant-based actually means a diet that is minimal or no animal products. So it can mean a diet that is simply, like say something like around 80% plants with a little bit of animal products thrown in there. But the focus is around plants and the animal products are sort of an extra or an aside to the plants. It doesn't mean a diet that's like no processed foods, no oil, no salt, vegan, high carb or whatever. It doesn't mean any of that. It's not meant to be a restrictive term at all.
So you've been running your blog for how long now?
3.5 years.
And you've just launched a YouTube channel, haven't you?
Yes, I have.
Which we will feature on
Yes.
shortly.
So go check it out. We're going to put all the details out there.
Mm-hmm. I think I found you guys on Twitter, definitely. And I think it was because I saw quite a few people who I follow retweeting stuff that you'd posted.
Yeah.
And I saw this not plant-based and I thought to myself, oh god, this is it, this is the end of me. But then I actually looked at the content and I thought this is actually really good stuff.
We're going to talk a little bit today about the kind of the blogging world and how our concerns with it. And I guess what's interesting with you, Pixie, is that you kind of started in that world and then you maybe realised that some of it wasn't as clear-cut as you thought it was, or you kind of started to notice things that you weren't quite sure about and that concerned you.
Yeah, well, when I went into blogging, it was from a massively wellnessy, the really like wanky wellnessy kind of point of view, and I was following all these like big bloggers who were telling me, you know, oh, I don't eat this, I don't eat that, and I was thinking, okay, maybe I should not eat this and not eat that. And I fell for basically everything that all these big bloggers were saying, completely, 100%. And I promoted the same thing that they did. You know, all the superfoods, all the, you know, the juices, the complete lack of diversity in diet through, you know, eliminating so many different food groups. I did all of that. I had this like massive realization when I was in Australia, because I was sitting in a car with these other sort of wellness bloggers, and one of them said to me, oh, I would never vaccinate my kids. And my brain just went, what the fuck? I have a degree in science. Why am I dealing with these people? I don't belong here. I found out basically as much information as I could, questioned everything that I was reading from that point onwards. And I slowly started realising that almost everything that a lot of these bloggers were saying was complete and utter rubbish.
Why do you think that you felt kind of quite vulnerable to it and just took it at face value and didn't question it so much?
I think it was because I had just had like a health scare kind of thing. It was nothing like major, but I was just told that my cholesterol was really high and it was possibly genetic, but if I didn't do something about it or if it didn't change, then I'd have to go on statins, and statins are drugs that you're on for the rest of your life. And that really didn't really appeal to me very much, so I thought there must be something I can do. There must be something I can do with my diet, with my lifestyle, to be able to actually stop this from happening. And so that's when I then found Instagram, found all these bloggers, and everything went wrong. You had to put a lot of colour and vegetables on your plate to be noticed. If you used #vegan, you got so many more likes than if you didn't. And also having a pretty face, which you put on your Instagram, because then it invokes the whole look like me, eat like me, look like me thing. Having some kind of story that people can relate to a little bit.
Before and after.
Exactly,
So
some kind of transformation. And I've noticed that especially in the fitness community. There's a huge, there's a couple of ones that I've noticed in particular who have become massively famous in a short space of time, simply because they post just pictures of themselves, of their bodies and the way they look. And then, you know, they'll go on and post about, you know, their macros, or they'll say, oh, you know, this is what I've been eating and stuff, and people want to look like them and can relate to them because they're young, you know, they're trying to be funny, which often, in my opinion, they fail, but, you know, some people find it quite funny. And that's a big, big issue, because a lot of the time, the way these people eat and the way they train is not easily attainable, it's not healthy, and it's not really an ideal to be striving towards, because they're training for like 2 hours a day, and they're like counting macros with a really restrictive diet, and that's not happiness, surely.
No.
You recently had a scientific paper published. You're officially
I
a
did.
published scientist.
Yes.
So that was about the links between orthorexia and social media, well, social media exposure, wasn't it?
Yes.
So in your did you have that idea because of the world that you were in and you saw elements of it and so you thought, I wonder if this is a thing?
Oh, definitely. I mean, loads. There's always a pattern, and there's always certain behaviours that will always be like a sort of red flag, and there'll be things like people will be talking about how people will be like over exaggerating and over shouting about how wonderful their really restrictive diet is, and how, you know, oh, it's not restrictive at all. Look at this banana ice cream I'm eating, which is one ingredient. Like, wow, that's such a varied diet, isn't it? And people will be talking about how anxious they are when they go out to eat. So what I really saw a lot of was people coming from an anorexic background and then switching to veganism after they decided they were recovered for a certain period of time, and which is just really another way of being really restrictive with your diet in a way that's, you know, people will deem to be acceptable.
Yeah.
But the pattern was definitely very much with restrictive attitudes and also just feeling anxious around food, despite the fact they were proclaiming, oh, you know, I'm so wonderfully healthy and recovered and so like happy, but yet I'm so anxious about going out for a meal.
Yeah, I think there's definitely a relation to taking pictures of all your food and still having like ED tendencies, because I find that as time goes on and as I become more recovered, I don't know if that's right, I'm less inclined to take pictures of my food. So I used to take a picture of every meal, and slowly that's reducing down.
So much of Instagram's food community comes from a disordered eating background. So much. I mean, it's much more surprising when someone doesn't come from that kind of background than when they do.
And how do you know that? Is it that they're open about this?
Yeah, most of the time people are just really open about it, or, you know, they'll mention it in conversation, and it's just they're very open about having a disordered history with food. So I saw all of this on Instagram especially, and I was doing my masters, and you have to do an independent research project as part of it, and I thought, wouldn't this be great to see if this actually holds up in scientific research, in the actual, you know, controlled variables, controlled environment, all this kind of extra sort of constraints on it, does it still hold up? And so I actually recruited most of my participants through Instagram, got people to fill out, you know, the whole questionnaires about how they feel about food, what kind of diet they eat, how much they use social media. And I did find an association. It's not causation, just to be clear. I didn't show that anything causes anything, but there's definitely an association between Instagram use and orthorexic tendencies. So the more time you spend on Instagram, especially in the foodie community, the more likely you are to have stronger orthorexia symptoms. And that doesn't hold up for things like Twitter, it doesn't, not Facebook, Google+, LinkedIn, Pinterest, all these things. That just didn't stand. It was only Instagram. I mean, I noticed it when I was doing the whole, you know, no animal products, so I guess, you know, vegan, gluten-free, refined sugar-free crap. I was following people who were eating the same way I was. And that just reinforces that the way you're eating is more normal than it actually is, and makes you think that everything you're doing is fine because everyone else around you is doing it. And that kind of echo chamber effect on social media is actually quite dangerous, I think, because it makes everything seem more normal when actually it's really not. Like, the way I was eating was extreme and unnecessary and ridiculous. But it seemed normal because everyone was doing the same thing.
What's the kind of biggest regret that you have? What's the biggest thing that you maybe said or did that you feel maybe ashamed about now, or just that you wish you hadn't said it or did it?
I think I wish I hadn't got so involved with supplement and superfood companies, because I was part of this whole group of Instagrammers who were involved with this one particular superfood company, which unfortunately still exists today, but they were very unprofessional towards me when I actually said to them I didn't want to be involved with them anymore. And that is one of my big regrets, I think, because I was all over their website, we did events together, I promoted their stuff everywhere. I had to go back through my Instagram and delete probably like 100 pictures just because I featured their products so much. I removed all the links from my blog to their page. Because I received commission if someone bought the products. It wasn't much, to be fair, because this was like 3 years ago when my blog was really tiny, so I got like £8 every couple of months, that kind of thing. So nothing major. But I do really regret being so involved and just believing everything that they said to me, because they really perpetuated some really awful food myths on their website and on their Instagram. They'd get experts to talk on their website and it'd be things like dentists saying, oh, if your teeth are healthy, you don't need to brush them because they will clean themselves. Like, that's absolute bollocks.
And were they actual dentists saying that?
Yeah. It's like, well, it's the same, with like these weird doctors who are so far removed from the actual medical consensus. The same, obviously, with this crazy dentist. And, they would get like naturopaths and people with questionable qualifications to come in and talk.
Reflexology.
Yeah, and people talking about, oh, everyone should be cutting out gluten and outlining why. And they were like telling all these kind of rubbish on their website and on their social media. And I was associated with them for so long and associated with all that crap, and I really do regret that. I don't regret going through the whole journey of eating really restrictively and then coming to where I am now, because I wouldn't be doing what I'm doing now if it weren't for all of that in the first place.
So what would you say to other people who are trying to get into the blogging industry, or maybe even yourself like 4 years ago or something?
I would say to question everything, ask for evidence, make sure that not all your friends come from Instagram, so that you're actually surrounded by a variety of people not doing the same thing as you. And also follow a diverse range of people. So you're following people who aren't eating the same way as you or think the same way as you. Follow people who will actually broaden your perspective a bit more. Yeah, I would say those things.
Well, thank you very much, Pixie. Thank you for coming on our channel.
Thank you.
And thank you for watching.
Bye.